Breaking news from the Caribbean energy world. Guyana has just told ExxonMobil that it cannot begin new oil exploration near the disputed Venezuela border until the International Court of Justice delivers its ruling. This marks a serious diplomatic development, and if you want to stay updated with every major shift in Caribbean oil, politics and geopolitics, hit that subscribe button now. Let's break down what's happening. On February 20th, 2026, Guyana's Natural Resources Minister Vikram Parrot confirmed that Exxon submitted a request to explore for oil in the northwestern part of Guyana's massive Stabroek Block, closer to the Venezuelan border. But the government said no for now. This area is in dispute because of a long-running territorial disagreement with Venezuela, and Guyana wants to avoid worsening tensions. Instead, Guyana is waiting on a decision from the International Court of Justice, which is now handling the border case. So what is the ICJ and why is this important? The International Court of Justice is the United Nations' top legal body in The Hague, and it is expected to resolve whether the 1899 boundary established under colonial arbitration is still valid. Guyana insists that this boundary is legally binding and gives it full rights over the disputed territory, including offshore oil zones. Venezuela argues otherwise and has historically challenged that boundary. The ruling could come later this year, and until then, Guyana doesn't want Exxon drilling in an area that Venezuela also claims, because that could escalate conflict. Guyana's government says this is a sovereignty and peace-preserving decision. This is a big deal because the Stabroek Block is one of the most valuable offshore oil plays in the world. Exxon and partners have already made more than 50 discoveries, producing hundreds of thousands of barrels per day, with plans to increase those numbers. If Exxon were allowed to explore near the disputed border, it might trigger diplomatic pushback from Venezuela, which has in the past sent naval vessels into waters it says are Venezuelan. So for now, Guyana is choosing to wait on the World Court. Exxon's leadership has publicly acknowledged that a World Court ruling is a critical milestone for future work in areas affected by the dispute. They are still active elsewhere in the Stabroek Block and are even assessing its natural gas potential, which could be huge for power generation and industrial growth. So this isn't Exxon walking away, it's Exxon waiting for legal clarity before operating in that specific zone. For Guyana, oil has transformed the economy, expected to propel growth into the next decade and reshape the region's energy map. But balancing that boom with geopolitical stability is crucial. By saying no to drilling near the Venezuela border for now, Guyana is signaling that it wants to protect diplomatic relations while still benefiting from massive energy development. The dispute dates back to colonial times. In 1899, a tribunal set the border, but Venezuela later contested that ruling and reignited territorial claims over a region called Essequibo, nearly two-thirds of Guyana's landmass, especially after massive oil discoveries offshore. The ICJ has already said it does have jurisdiction to rule on the case, and it's now moving forward. Now all eyes are on the ICJ. If the court rules in favor of Guyana's interpretation of the border, Exxon might be allowed to explore in those northwest areas later this year. If not, that could reshape where and how oil exploration happens. Either way, this news could impact not just energy markets, but regional diplomacy across the Caribbean and South America. What do you think this means for Exxon? Should Guyana have waited or pushed forward with drilling? Comment below, and if you want daily updates on this case, regional energy politics and more world energy drama you won't hear anywhere else, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll keep tracking this story as it develops. The ICJ ruling could be one of the biggest shakes in Caribbean oil history. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. What happens next depends heavily on the ruling from the International Court of Justice, and that decision could permanently shape the future of oil development, not just in Guyana, but across the wider Caribbean and northern South America. If the court confirms the validity of the 1899 Arbitral Award, Guyana would gain stronger international legal backing over the disputed Essequibo region and its offshore waters. That could open the door for ExxonMobil to move ahead with exploration in the northwestern section of the Stabroek Block, without the same level of geopolitical uncertainty. However, if the process drags on or tensions rise again with Venezuela, energy companies may remain cautious about operating near the contested boundary. Investors watch political risk very closely, and even the perception of instability can affect timelines, insurance costs, and long-term planning. That's why this decision by the Guyanese government is significant. It shows a strategic pause rather than a retreat. Exxon is still producing heavily in other parts of the block, and production targets for upcoming projects remain on track. Another key factor to watch is regional diplomacy. Increased cooperation between Guyana and international partners, including the United States and other Western allies, could strengthen Guyana's position while discouraging escalation. At the same time, Venezuela's domestic politics and economic situation will also influence how aggressively it pursues its territorial claim. Energy, sovereignty, and national pride are powerful forces in this dispute. For now, drilling in the disputed northwest area remains on hold, but the broader oil boom continues. Guyana's production capacity is still expected to rise significantly over the next few years, reinforcing its position as one of the fastest-growing oil producers in the world.